What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. Today's episode, this is a glorious day. This is a magical episode. We have got on a legendary guest. Without further ado, the one and only Elon Musk. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. It's important to understand that the press is primarily a click maximizing machine, not a truth maximizing machine. And really, it's somewhat of a Darwinian exercise. If you're not a click maximizing machine, well, you don't get the clicks, and then you don't get the revenue, and then the company goes under.
Yeah.
So I think the environmental movement kind of got somewhat overzealous and kind of was, and like in the limit of environmentalism, you sought to conclude that humanity is a plague on Earth, that humanity is actually the problem.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And that's like obviously taking the environmental movement just too far. But there are literally people who believe this. They're like extinctionists.
Yes.
There's some things which sound like a blessing, but may in fact be a curse.
Yeah.
Like I think you will live forever. It sounds like a blessing. It's actually a curse. You would not want to live forever. You don't know how long forever is.
Yesterday, we did the 2023 Vivid Tech interview of Elon Musk. Whenever Elon has a crowd, it tends to be a party. But today, let's do the one-on-one with Zuby and see if we can't get a little bit more insight. This will be a supercut, but if you want to catch the interview in its entirety, the link will be posted in the description. Let's get to it.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. Today's episode, this is a glorious day. This is a magical episode. We have got on a legendary guest. Without further ado, the one and only Elon Musk. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
So good to have you on. So good to meet you.
Yeah. Likewise, to meet you in person. I've interacted a lot. We've interacted a lot online, but it's nice to be in person.
Absolutely. First things first, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, it's got a lot going on, obviously. So I actually just got in from Starbase, Texas, and we're building the Starship rocket. So getting ready for another launch, hopefully this time, probably be ready in about 6 to 8 weeks.
First question I have to ask, of course, is just how do you manage this all, man? You do so many things, and just managing a single one of the companies that you do is a gargantuan task. So how do you even manage all this on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, with great difficulty. I mean, I work a lot, and I have to say the last 6 months have been extra difficult because of the Twitter workload. I think things are reasonably stable at Twitter at this point. Obviously, Linda Yaccarino has joined, and I think she'll be a big help. And now that we're sort of financially more or less stable, it's not like an emergency situation.
So you brought up X. X is something that you've been having in mind for a long time. Tell me
like
the
20
story.
years.
Yeah, tell me the story about X.com.
Well, I mean, way back in the day, the idea was for X or X.com to be an all-encompassing financial services company, most efficient database for the information that is money. The way that money currently works is, from a practical standpoint, it's still mostly run on mainframes. That's still a thing for banks. It's mostly written in COBOL. It's still mostly batch processing. So actually the financial system is very slow. It's not secure. You've got all these heterogeneous, complex databases. So if you have a real-time homogeneous database that is just like fundamentally more efficient and doesn't have all the expenses of bank buildings all over the place and bank branches and ATMs, which are increasingly kind of redundant, it can operate way more efficiently. And so essentially, if done right, the X would serve people's financial needs to such a degree that over time it would become, I don't know, maybe half of the global financial system. They said like least amount of fraud, everything's real time. And if it involves money in any way, it can be dealt with seamlessly on one location. There's potential there to make a product that is really quite compelling, that combines all these things, simplifies people's lives, is more, cost efficient for the average person. So, you have a minimum number of fees and whatnot. So, So I think there's just a lot of potential to create some like the ultimate app or system, website, whatever.
I hear that.
First couple of questions include Twitter and the potential of X.com. I'm not an avid Twitter user. I do have it. Really not my bag. But the X.com, I like the way Elon looks at building these companies. First, how does this help humanity? Second, do what's easiest for the consumer. Providing the most ease for the customer is the fastest way to financial prosperity. You look at all of his companies, it's all about making the human experience better. And surprisingly enough, with that will come revenue.
So would the long-term goal be for Twitter to evolve into X over time so it would just be fully integrated?
Yeah, I mean, I said at the time of the acquisition, like I could do this independently and create it from scratch, or what I thought was acquiring Twitter would probably accelerate progress by 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years.
What was the biggest impetus to buying Twitter? What was the thing that made you want to do that?
Well, like I said, there is a sort of, for a long time, I wanted to do sort of the for Create X Core, and so that was one element of it. I also thought that I was growing increasingly concerned that there was a lack of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and that there was a lot of censorship, and a lot of censorship was, some of it was obvious, a lot of it was hidden.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really unhealthy for public discourse. So effectively, Twitter and frankly, Google and YouTube and whatnot, Facebook, they put their thumb on the scale of elections worldwide, and they have done for some time. And a lot of times it's so subtle you don't even really notice it. Frankly, Google's might be the most pernicious in that it's very easy for them to just slightly derank a search. So it's on page like 4 or 5 if you're looking for something, and nobody ever goes there. So it's not gone. It's just not on page 1.
Yeah. And
the old joke used to be that what's the best place to hide a dead body would be the second page of Google search results. And nobody ever goes there.
Yeah.
In order to have a solid bedrock for democracy, and frankly, even if a country's not strictly speaking a democracy, it's still good for the people to know what's going on.
Yeah.
We have to have at least one platform that you can count on that is maximum truth seeking, and that's what the goal is here with X/Twitter is maximum truth seeking. Free speech is only relevant if we allow people that you don't like to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it loses all meaning. And if you don't let people you don't like say things that they don't like, and you censor them, it's only a matter of time before that censorship is turned upon you.
Yeah.
So that was the essential wisdom in the First Amendment. And so you can kind of tell that it's working if you see people that you don't like saying you don't like. That's a good sign, actually.
Yeah.
So that actually freedom of speech is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
It really is. Cost billions of dollars. It's currently costing freedom of speech is currently costing about $2 billion a year. So this is a lot.
Just on Twitter.
I'm confident at this point we do the least amount of censorship. We're the most open. We're the only social media company that open sources its recommendation algorithm. Everyone else is still, just a black box. You don't know what's going on in there.
Were you expecting? I mean, I guess number one is what level of backlash or criticism have you received? I mean, I see what I see, but sure. I mean, from your perspective, how much has it been in terms of just the amount of stuff coming, whether that's from mainstream media or just from individuals and even other organizations?
Well, I think it was really be hard to avoid the criticism of me. Frankly, it's like it's not like I'm not dying to get press. It's just my name gets a lot of clicks, and it's important to understand that the press is primarily a click maximizing machine, not a truth maximizing machine. And really, it's somewhat of a Darwinian exercise. If you're not a click maximizing machine, well, you don't get the clicks, and then you don't get the revenue, and then the company goes under. Yeah. So the entire incentive structure is maximize clicks, not maximize truth. And so that's why you'll have sort of incendiary headlines that are like really way over the top, or because often the truth is boring and complicated. I mean, the media is going to give you generally the dramatized Cliff Notes version of reality. Because if they give you the full thing, it's too complicated and going to bore people. And if they really give it too much balance, it really doesn't have enough controversy to get the click. This is the incentive structure, and so whatever you incent will happen.
How do you think that's going to play out over time? I mean, I think a lot of people recognize the problem with the sort of clickbait model. Like it's really a broken incentive structure that's leading to increased manipulation, ridiculous headlines. I mean, we see a lot. It's why it can be difficult to see the line between satire and reality now, because it's just gotten so goofy that you can't tell whether something is from the Babylon Bee or the Onion.
Like many times.
Yeah, or
it's getting totally crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there's been stuff about, fitness being linked to fascism and white supremacy, and, bodybuilding is a...
Fitness, really.
I wasn't aware that that's what I was promoting. But.
I mean, people should obviously be in good shape. It's just a matter of health and feeling good. And I mean, I should work out. I don't really work out much. But I agree. I think I agree with the idea of working out, and I agree with the idea of fitness, and it's just obviously a fundamental, healthy way to live.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Elon. Make sure you're getting your steps in and stay hydrated.
Something I wanted to ask you is, and this is a big question. But with all the stuff that you do, what motivates you? What's the big driver?
Well, I mean, generally, what I'm trying to do is take the set of actions that maximize the probability that the future will be good for civilization, that we will expand the scope and scale of consciousness, so that we're better able to understand the nature of the universe. So I'd say I have like a philosophy of curiosity that's maybe best articulated by Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
So where, that's where they famously has like it's a big computer comes up with the answer 42, but the really hard part is what question to ask. So I think it's like we want to try to understand more about the nature of the universe, understand like what does it all mean, where do we come from, where are we going, where does this all end up, what's real, are there aliens? I mean,
well, they seem to be confirming some stuff quite recently.
I mean, I have yet to see any actual evidence of aliens. So, and I'm really deep in space. But I also think like if there aren't aliens, or that's actually perhaps even a bigger concern, because if there actually aren't aliens in our galaxy or anywhere near us, then consciousness on planet Earth is the light of consciousness is like it's like a tiny candle in a vast darkness, and a fragile candle, and we should just do everything we can to make sure it does not go out.
What do you think is the greatest threat to humanity?
Well, I think digital superintelligence is a real concern. I mean, I think we could find there's a whole bunch of dead one planet civilizations, never got beyond the home planet. So
Earth is the home planet, folks, and I'm under the inclination that there are several one-planet civilizations. The endeavor to be a multi-planetary species is ridiculously hard. Further, humanity spreads its way throughout the galaxy and eventually to other star systems. The chance of a cosmic catastrophe wiping out our entire civilization gets a little bit smaller. There are so many things in the universe that could cause an extinction-level event. Humans are hardy and resilient. No better way to put that to the stress test than seeing how we survive out past Jupiter.
Earth arguably may become uninhabitable as soon as 500 million years from now, which is a long time, but Earth's been around for 4.5 billion, so that would only be a 10% increase in the lifespan of Earth. We're a flash in the pan, basically. We want to do everything we can to obviously make life on Earth great, and make sure Earth is solid, and that civilization is on a sound footing. Keep making Earth better, but then expand to Mars, and ultimately, to the rest of the solar system, and eventually to other star systems. be a spacefaring civilization, like, in the good sci-fi movies and shows. It's like, Star Trek and whatnot. Let's, go out there and see, civilizations we've never, I mean, it'd be pretty cool if we meet aliens and hopefully they're friendly, for most of Earth demographic collapse. Like the birth rates were crazy low. So we're certainly, I think, not expanding, and we're really going to contract pretty significantly. I mean, Japan last year had twice as many deaths as births.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's why I'm, encouraging people, like, let's at least maintain our numbers, like we don't need to expand in a crazy way, but it's at least maintain our numbers, maybe a little bit of growth.
Why do you think so many people think the opposite? I mean, you hear a lot of talk about I think the whole overpopulation thing
is total rubbish.
I think it's a massive psyop, and
that's not true.
But why do so many otherwise smart people buy into that?
Well, I think to some degree this is a side effect of the environmental movement.
Okay,
so the sort of environmental movement, I think, started off well, where it was saying, look, we need to move to sustainable energy, which is correct in the long term. We do need to move to sustainable energy. It's tautological. If we don't move to sustainable energy, then it's unsustainable and we'll run out and civilization will grind to a halt. So we do need to have sustainable energy over time. There's obviously a concern with climate change. Although, I'm of the opinion that while there is a long-term concern for climate change, there is not really much of a short-term concern. It's a very slow process, and I think we don't need to sort of be stopping people from farming or having cows or whatever. Like, this is crazy. This is and that's like small potatoes from an environmental standpoint. I think the environmental movement kind of got somewhat overzealous and kind of was, and like in the limit of environmentalism, you start to conclude that humanity is a plague on Earth, that humanity is actually the problem.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And that's obviously taking the environmental movement just too far. But there are literally people who believe this. They're like extinctionists.
Yes.
New York Times, some months ago, had an article, front page article with some guy who, and his quote was, "There are 8 billion people on Earth, and it would be better if there were none."
That's dark.
Yeah. I'm like, dark. Hey, buddy, you can start with yourself, if you really want to, make a difference. How about, take your own advice here. But that's like a crazy viewpoint, That's like literally saying, let's genocide humanity. I'm like, what? How can you say that with a straight face? That sounds like total madness.
When it comes to the idea of underpopulation, what is your biggest concern about that? If there are not, you've said many times publicly that we need more people, we need more human beings.
Yeah.
What would happen if, this is not my perspective, but for the people who are there who do think, who do have this sort of Malthusian worldview, and they think that there's too many people and there aren't enough resources. And he's been wrong for a very long time, but kind of like
still comes back.
Communism, it won't go away.
Exactly. There we go again.
So what's the greatest fear there? If people are not reproducing as they have been for most of human history, what's the greatest concern there?
Well, I think it's like what we risk is a civilizational collapse.
Yeah. What do you think could practically be done to help with that? Because a big factor in this is, I talk to a lot of young men and young women. I'm in my own position as well.
Yeah, you should have
and
some
so
kids.
I plan to. I will.
Yeah.
But due to from everything from social and cultural factors, economic factors, financial factors, a lot of young men and women, say the average 20-year-old or even 25-year-old, they find the whole idea of having children, bringing new life into the world, very scary because they feel like, hey, I don't have the money, I can't afford it, I can't even buy a house, I'm in debt, I'm struggling to keep my head above water, so on. So what do you think could practically be done in USA, Canada, UK, Europe, all these developed countries, South Korea, Japan, all these places where the, population is declining, birth rates are declining? I think it's one thing to recognize the issue, but what do you think can be done on a sort of practical, reasonable level.
Well, I do think that like some of the incentive structure in a lot of countries is against having kids.
Yes.
Financially difficult.
Mhm.
I mean, I say that, but then ironically, the higher someone's income,
Fewer kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't totally make sense that you have an inverse correlation with income and kids.
Mm.
There's unjustified fears of like, well, if I have a kid, things are going to be financially terrible, and it's actually not true. I don't know that I have a good answer to this because I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I know that for a lot of young people, and some of this is media and cultural programming, but a lot of people have been pushed over the decades the idea that having children ruins your life, right? That it takes away your freedom and your autonomy, and you can't have fun and do all this cool stuff, and you've got to just, I think the idea of parenthood. I think the solution is I don't know exactly how to do this, but I think the idea of parenthood and family needs to be made cool.
Yeah, it does.
It needs to be made cool again.
Yeah.
This interview has been very little about Tesla, but it has been entertaining to get some insights. And Zuby's asking some pretty awesome questions, none more so than this one right here. I don't have any children, but it's not from lack of trying. On top of all of these reasons why people don't want to have children, I'm led to wonder whether or not people are making these decisions in their early 20s, much like myself. I was like, I don't want kids. I'm in the military, I'm doing my thing. I really don't want to be handcuffed to a child and then this financial responsibility, right? I mean, like, man, I have to be in the military because now I have children and I want to make sure I have financial stability. So that was my decision making. But the fear of parenthood is a real thing. As we continue down this path, people are going to want children in their 30s and maybe even their 40s. Advancement of medical science will allow us to procreate even further past our 40s. But the older you get, the more dangerous it is in many aspects. I'm of the mindset that it will correct itself naturally, but only after it's been determined a catastrophe. The goal is to try to get this corrected before it becomes a huge problem. Great question by Zuby, and obviously Elon doesn't have the answer. Facts are birth rates are dropping. Until there is a significant shift in sentiment, I don't see this trend easing up.
And I think people just don't understand, like, nothing will make you happier than having kids. And I mean, we're kind of like programmed for that.
You've got a lot of kids?
Yeah, I'm trying to set a good example.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How has having kids made your life better? How does it make you happier? And how does it motivate and drive the things that you're doing?
Well, I don't know. It's like, I think it's normal to love your kids. It's just kind of an automatic thing. And they've got this little creature that's depending on you to take care of it. And it's very rewarding to do so, I think, inherently.
Something about nurturing, right? I don't have any kids, but when I nurture plants or when I nurture Chewbacca, something wells up inside of you, some level of pride. Having kids is not a bad thing.
What keeps you optimistic day to day? You're a busy man. You're running all these companies. You've got a busy family life going on. You've got praise, criticism, love, hate flowing in all different directions. But number one, two questions actually. Number one, how do you stay sane and grounded with it all? Because something that's always
What makes you think I'm sane?
I think you're certainly grounded, and I think you're grounded. Honestly, I mean, the fact that we're sitting here and that you interact with so many people. I mean, let's be honest. If 99% of people were in your position, they wouldn't be doing what you're doing on any level. You're there on Twitter. You're cracking jokes. You're posting memes and responding. I mean, if it's you're who you are, but you strike me as a normal guy who's doing extraordinary things rather than someone who's just completely, like, I don't know, out there and I couldn't even have a conversation with, So that's what I mean by sane.
Well, I do think it's important to, not get, quote Scarface, don't get high on your own supply. Of course, in the end, he did. But you don't want to start thinking too highly of yourself. because it actually reduces your feedback loop. You know, if you think you're too smart, you stop listening to criticism. So I think, you know, Twitter's actually helpful for that. You know, certainly people will not shy about voicing their opinions. So
the frogs with 20 followers keep you in check.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like there's just some things I'm trying to get accomplished, and you know, advanced rocketry and sustainable energy, and in the case of Twitter, freedom of speech. So I think these things mean a lot to me. So I guess I'm motivated to get these things done. In order to get these things done, I have to stay sane because, like physics is the law and everything else is a recommendation. And if you go crazy and you don't do things that, you know, agree with physics, the rockets blow up, the cars don't work. So physics is a harsh judge. It's you get the engineering and the math right, or you don't, and it doesn't work if you don't. So you have to stay grounded in order for the technologies to actually work.
I hear that. Elon, very, very grateful for you taking the time out for this conversation. I want to say, I mean, I said this on Twitter, but I want to say it to your face. I massively admire and appreciate what you're doing. A massive thank you from everyone who has been dealing with the nonsense on Twitter, who's managed to get their accounts back and be able to speak freely and all that. I want to say that. But honestly, I think what you're doing is awesome. You're a huge inspiration. I know that in this age of criticism, people don't like to tell people, hey, you're doing a good job. I want to encourage you. I want to uplift you. So I want to do that. And God bless you.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right.
Well, that was a very fascinating interview. Very nice that Elon is able to take some time out, answer some questions, alleviate some concerns that many of the public may have. Again, this is the Supercut, the entire video. If you hadn't already seen it, it'll be linked below. Be easy. Peace.